Madam Treasurer, are there any new fines?
There are no fines.
Madam Secretary, are there any reports to be read?
There are no reports to be read.
The time for questions are now open.
Madam Secretary, are there any motions on notice?
There are no motions on notice.
Madam Secretary, are there any motions not on notice?
There are no motions not on notice.
The time for questions is now closed.
This brings us on to general business. Are there any motions to be raised? There being none,
There's a motion to be raised.
Oh, please.
Everyone come to GM Bar. GM Bar is upstairs in rec and pool room immediately following this. If you have tickets, get right up and we'll scan them in. If you don't have tickets, show up anyway. You can go out the door. Thank you very much.
All right. That concludes our private business. Our secretary shall retire and return with the speakers for tonight's debate. Hear, hear. Welcome to the University Philosophical Society. The motion that stands before the House today is this House believes our children will inherit a better world. Standing orders are as follows. Speeches are a maximum of 7 minutes and 10 minutes for guests. After the first minute and before the last minute of each speech, which will be signified by a bell, speakers and audience members are free to offer points of information. We encourage audience participation at our debates, and if you hear something you like, you may shout "hear, hear" or "slay," and if you hear something you don't like, you can shout "shame." We prioritise respect and dignity at all our events, and if anything that is said today concerns you, you can speak to our Senior Member of Council, Russell Bolger, who will be here and at our GM Bar all night. Alternatively, you can connect him through smc@tcdphil.com or Liam, our president @tcdphil.com. With that, I call on speaker number 1, Ferdia de Rosa Murphy, to open this debate.
Esteemed judges, piles of festering meat, salivating troglodytes, pathetic jackoffs, welcome. Many questions arose while considering the terms of this debate, such as, what are children, and should Jacob Barron be allowed to have any? Is a child born out of wedlock still a child? And since this is the Phil, should I assume that our children means white children? Anyway, by which metrics do we judge a better world? Human experience or material reality? Well, seeing as the earth itself will not heal in the short time it takes you guys to settle for mediocrity and pop out a few whelps, I will argue that our children will experience a better, more truthful world, even in an era of climate catastrophe. This world will not be better for eternity. In fact, pollution will probably render our children infertile, or at least cause their offspring to be like little wet, limbless nubs. Yet, I will argue that this coming generation will find connection in the cataclysm and be able to access something that we could never, authentic experience. Think about our current experience of the world. Do we not all feel incredibly disoriented and disillusioned? Being completely transparent, I often think about kirking myself, especially when I hear grown adults, all of you by the way, using the same lingo heard in every primary school across the country. And if I reach my brain rot limit, I'm putting 6 fingers down your throat, 7 fingers up your ass, and I'm making them meet until I find out what you ate for lunch, okay? Anyway. Is no one else tired of meaningless buzzwords, constant advertisement, parasocial obsession? Some of you were positively vibrating at Hassan Piker patronage yesterday, like he was actually touching you, like he was like 100 meters away. Capitalism has worked hard to divide and isolate us, to convince us that our ultimate goal is to consume. Politics seems to exist in a rhetorical vacuum. Every word is symbolic and not meant to be taken literally. Despite our internal turmoil, there are those in poor countries dying in their thousands from disasters triggered by the actions of rich nations, on top of all the proxy wars. How hopeless and unjust that must feel. And also, Israel hasn't been swept up by a large hurricane and fucked on top of Germany yet. So there's something that our children can really look forward to in the future. Last week in Chamber was pretty enlightening for me in terms of the corrupting power of today's world. Was anyone else there? Yeah? Anyone remember anyone of notes? So when that gremlin representing UCD, who looked like Jenny from Derry Girls, by the way, disrespected an actual army cadet and then went on a rabies-fueled rant about how he doesn't get fresh milk in UCD, I had an epiphany, okay? I don't think we can create worse humans if we try, okay? It's true. We've already introduced the most hostile conditions possible into the world. The lowest of humanity walk among us. Nazis, Redditors, Gooners, Goonettes, shout out Goonettes. It's a new movement, they're like modern day suffragettes. Cooks, Young Fine Gael, and actually those two are synonymous, so I'm gonna put down one finger again. So the list goes on, right? This is the pits, rock bottom. Even the fact that I've mentioned gooning in at least 6 speeches this semester is a major cause for concern. But if we goon down, then we goon down together, okay? Like, let's not play about it. And just by bearing witness to the exacerbating effects of capitalism, as well as the techno-feudalist realities of much of the world's superpowers, it's clear that as long as the world's elite remain unaffected, we will not see any material betterment in our lives. As the rich into underground bunkers, the rest of us, well, some of you guys will be with them, but the rest of us will remain here suffering from environmental and political ruin. I get furious thinking about how Speed or Mr. Beast will be hiding in some nice fallout shelter filming 100 people say chungus until they pass out, like some bullshit like that, while the acid rain outside is like discoagulating my eyes and flaying my skin off. So yes, our children are likely to inherit a world on the brink of collapse, but they will not have to live with being conflicted by contradictory and alternating feelings of hope and despair. We may live most of our lives caught in the cruelty of knowing we have the necessary resources to prevent the incoming disaster, but that they are in the wrong hands. Another positive for our children, which might not initially sound like one, is that the knowledge of imminent doom brings about changes to the human psyche. The imposition of a non-natural fate forces us to reevaluate our belief systems and the way we interact with our surroundings. I spoke to several people who think the world is already ending and found out that they lead much happier lives. One said this: "Today I know what my place in life is. Look out for all the good things, wait for them, grab them, lick them all over. It's not long until we'll have to prostrate and be alien footstools, so I enjoy every day, making a life within the possibilities available each moment," which is pretty beautiful. But then another one told me this: "They're slathering coins in the COVID vaccine, Mark Zuckerberg is a giant lizard, and there's a race of mole people living under the campanile." My last interviewee was a chap called Michael Hayden. Anyone know him? He asked me this: "Other than my hair, what's red, rock hard, and bad for your teeth?" He said a brick, okay? And I said, that sounds about right. And then he said, "Have you heard the joke about the terminally ill child? It never gets old." Not cool, Michael. The point is that our children will be born into a world without pretense, one that has bared its teeth and revealed its true self. As reality becomes more glaringly obvious, there will be no attempts at rewriting the narrative. In that world, they will find liberation. Starving, suffering people who would have died anyway will not suffer twice anymore, first by their circumstances, but secondly by empty diplomatic rhetoric that never manifests into something tangible. A truthful world will bring some comfort to those even in the direst situations. Truth will not solve inequality or reduce physical harm, but it will allow us to finally engage with each other in genuine ways. The clarity of their place in the world and the sense of imminence that our children will have will push them to live their most authentic lives. No more putting up with that one friend you wish you could gag, put in a bin bag, and throw from the top floor of the usher. Our children will have accepted the piteous state of the world around them and the consequences it will have on them. No more, "I'm going to kill myself," but "I'm in the process of being killed." Like, that's radical. Hate to go there, but I'd say standards will drop, which will be a lifeline for some of your chopped chitters. Like, they are going to love harder, they're going to fap less, they're going to connect deeper, live slower, moan louder. They will feel their humanity so much more than we ever could. Because humankind is at an all-time low. Our pessimism, our cynicism, compensating behaviors, materialism, bloodthirst. It's bad out here. We are in hell because we are caught in limbo in an untruthful world. I'm jealous of my successors who will never struggle with the illusion of truth and liberty, and who will be able to take the world at face value and live their lives with authenticity. And for those of you who approach me later at the GM bar, I'm sure my 6'7" limit will have been well reached by then, so proceed very carefully. Thank you.
I'd like to thank that speaker for a very fine speech and move on to our first opposition speaker, Alistair McAndrew.
That's a good start. Sorry, 2 secs, folks. Right. Dear distinguished brothers, in 1992, the Cold War, it was over. And on its dying ashes, the political scientist Francis Fukuyama, he made this bold claim, right? Think about it. The Berlin Wall had fallen, the Soviet Union, it was done. And I know Laszlo is knocking about somewhere, still crying about it, but he made this claim, right, that it was the end of history, that there'd be no reason for people to go and to make war with each other, that we'd all globally sit in a circle and jerk each other off. Well, Franny, my friend, multiple wars, famines, genocides, and a global pandemic later, you were wrong. And I think, and this leads to how you look at this motion, because with this motion, I feel it makes a lot of us think, like, oh fuck, oh shit. Like, I don't have children that I know of, touch wood, but in 10 to 15 years, there's a high chance that won't be the case. And the hope that I want to feel today is that the little shits will have a little something going for them. But this hope is up against the crushing reality of where the world is heading. There are multiple arguments I could make to prove to you wonderful people why our children will be, in better words, fucked. Climate change, political polarisation, the top 1% hoard more and more as working people begin to live paycheck to paycheck. And craziest enough, Donald Trump is the fucking president of America. Like, I don't care, that is nuts. Say that to a caveman, it's crazy, okay? So, like, take a step back and realise how nuts the world we live in actually is. But the argument I'm going to make, I'd like to focus on a niche issue, and on an issue that I feel is very unique to the times we live in, where a lot of issues you can bring up, I feel, are close to what issues that have happened past in history. So I'm going to be talking with our generation's issue with alienation through phone use. And look, I know all the best students in the room are like, oh my god, dude, that's like really mad deep, bro. Are you like a philosopher? Look, because they're best students. But, well, yes. Sorry, Zoya. But yes, so what is alienation, right? Alienation refers to a process where you disconnect from oneself, others, or society. And I truly believe that the process of alienation has been made drastically worse through the rise of social media, which has limited our effect to love. So, it's a big claim, I know, but I can give you 3 reasons for it. Okay, first, disconnection with making initial connection with someone. So think about it. Tinder, Bumble, Hinge, Grindr, Fringe. All these are bases where today we are to make connections with one another, to find love. But there is a disconnection, I'm afraid. How can I put my whole personality on there? Like, my politics. On Hinge, all I see is liberal, conservative. I see no option to be a proud Sean Tim O'Learyite, you know? Our personalities have to hit a bunch and fit a bunch of quips for questions. We are put into boxes and made into cliches. And this goes on to a story that's a little crazy I have. That happened to my mate, because my mate, good looking guy, he goes on a date, right? Date's going well. You know, goes back to hers, Mr. Flirty Flirty. A little bit of kissing, hands move up and hands move down. Until she brings out a dildo and asks to peg him. True story. And my mate, in horror, shock and awe, he runs out of there. He gets a taxi home. When I found that poor boy, I had to cradle him. But let's roll back. Because in her Tinder bio, she had a picture of Pope Francis. Apparently she was mad Catholic. So he had this expectation of the girl when he matched with her on Tinder that she would be this, that she would be that. But that expectation did not match the reality because because social media sets an expectation of what people are, and when we experience them, when we experience people in real life, we have this preconceived notion of who they are. And this kind of goes on to my second reason. So at the Debs, I voted Debs king of the situationship people. I feel social media has given a rise to the no man's land that is a situationship. Like, when you come into these halls, like, everyone was like, oh, I'm like Connell, I'm like Marianne. Like, shut the fuck up, please, for the life of you. And look, to get a little deep, but I had a strong connection with someone once, but a lot of it was through the phone. It was long distance, because it was inconvenient to see each other. We were able to just FaceTime or whatever. It was kind of cooked. But when time played its hand and the sparks separate like a ripples in a wave, the question of that connection we might have had through the phone, there's no clear-cut answer. There's no nuance to our communication. We don't have to complete these great acts for love. Love becomes a foreign concept because social media doesn't let it develop naturally. We become separated from the true passion that comes with being in love with someone because our communication is so stifled and one way or two way. And how can we tell our children what love is? when our definition itself is so muddled and confused. And this goes on to my third point, AI. Fuck AI, okay? I will not... Here. I will not give my soul to Palantir, I promise you. These problems that I've addressed, they're getting worse to worse, as we don't even have to look for human connection. AI has our back. People are using AI today as their therapist. It's fucked, right? So, think about it. I don't wake up anymore looking for the big questions. I don't go on rabbit holes down looking at some fucking niche political party. No, because I put it into Google, then AI has a big, nice answer for me. I don't wake up ready to snatch the day. I wake up to videos of Charlie Kirk's dead body doing 6-7. And everything is, and this goes to how we view the world. You know, when I was a kid, I used to ask big questions about the world. You know, I used to look up into the stars and ask the big questions. And when I go home, I will look up to the stars and I will ask, does J.D. Vance ask Erica for Kirk, or is he really traditional and ask her fellatio? You know, questions like that really do fill the existential hole in our soul, people. So, as humanity becomes more reliant on it, we may become more reliant on the connection that it can possibly offer to us. Our children are entering a world where they don't have to root out connections, they don't have to root out these connections, they don't have to work for it. Because ChatGPT and OpenAI and all these companies are just getting better at giving people what they think they want. Like, just fuck Peter Thiel and Sam Altman, honestly. So how does this affect the world that our children inherit? It's because a world where we are not just living, we're killing time. We live in a world where we have to guide our children through connection when we ourselves don't even understand it. Technology gets better and better, teaching the wrong issues. This blurs lines between what is real and what is not. This is a world where the individual doesn't have to connect to the whole face to face. This world is worse because our generation have to raise children without the understanding of connection itself. And look, I really do not want to live in this world. And look, this world might be a worse place, but I propose a solution, right? If I can influence everyone in this room, maybe we can get things to be just that little bit better. You know, we're going to change things up around here, people. This Christmas, we're giving forehead kisses. Upstairs, we're going to dance like no one is watching because no one is. We're going to fucking, I don't know, no more woke doggy nonsense. Missionaries back, baby. We're going to go for it, right? We're living life to the fullest because it might not be society as a whole, but it'll be us here in this room. Live life to the fullest. Guramila Mahagwiv. Choose life, live it to the fullest. Thank you very much.
I'd like to thank that speaker for a very fine speech and move on to our second opposition speaker, Saif Kavanagh.
I hope she didn't fall over. Okay. Akarja, I am here to assure you that our children will inherit a better world. And I say that as someone who recently witnessed a pair of UCD students doing things outside Busaurus that made me question everything. But then, I realised that if they could survive without catching 17 diseases or being mugged by an ambitious pigeon, then the world is actually improving. And I also knew the world was improving when I noticed that I'm not even the weirdest thing that would be up here today. And it's not because of the members of the opposition, Michael, or even Oliver. It is because of this. This is Chub Seal, and she's the child of the future. And probably the only child I will ever be holding after tonight. And she deserves a world where Busaurus and UCD Christmas Day is the worst thing she ever has to see. But okay, I have to explain myself now. What does a better world for our children actually mean? And what does a stuffed seal have got to do with it? Well, firstly, despite the opposition's long list of problems the world has, boring, right? This debate is not about whether the earth is perfect or not, because it just isn't. Humans are imperfect by definition. We are chaotic, messy, and some of us even believe Iarnód Éireann when they say our train will only be 10 minutes late. This debate is about whether we are trending upwards and whether human beings have a record of making things better for future generations. And this motion certainly resonated with me because I'm 17, which means that I still get asked if I'm big enough to sit in the exit row, and I'm not, and get ID'd when trying to buy paracetamol. So when I urge you all to vote proposition in this motion and not bully me horrendously, remember that. And remember that I need Chub Seal here for emotional support. Because if I was born in the past, she would be stuffed with asbestos. Today she's... Today she's filled with ethically sourced fluff, and that, Akarja, is progress. Okay, Chub Seal has told me through telepathic, fluff-based communication that it's time to move on to my first point. Progress is real, and it's happening quicker than the opposition can say, back in my day. If you zoom out a bit, beyond the traumatising image of Wosaurus, beyond UCD Christmas, and even beyond the hist, you will see that the past has repeatedly proved pessimists wrong. Look at the Industrial Revolution, for example, when parents genuinely believed the world would end. Well, spoiler, it didn't. Their descendants went on to invent sanitation, electricity, and the concept of weekends. It even got so good that I exist, and so does Seal. But this is my point. You should have laughed for that, guys. This is my point. The world becomes safer, cleaner, healthier, and more stable for every generation that inherits it. Now, the opposition might jump in and say, well, actually, progress isn't linear, and they'd be right. Progress zigzags, it stumbles and it faceplants like a culchie on their first night out in the big smoke. But their direction is always forward. Children born today are less likely to die in infancy, more likely to live past 80, have higher literacy levels, and most importantly, have Wi-Fi that is faster than a medieval snail. Even the seal proves it. If she'd be born 150 years ago, she'd be filled with pesticides and sadness. But today she's filled with EU-regulated love that had to pass more security checks than I did when I tried to sneak a cup of tea into the library. So yes, history shows improvement, but to see exactly why our children will inherit a better world, you just have to look at what we've upgraded. The opposition will try and tell you that technology and AI will bring the world to its knees, but is this true? Books were dangerous, radio was dangerous, Elvis Presley gyrating was akin to doomsday, but somehow we're still all here. In reality, technology doesn't merely include ChatGPT and Italian brain rot, but also all the advances in health, sustainability and stuffed seal toys. Our children will have tools beyond our comprehension, such as AI, which the opposition will tell you will make us all cooked, but to be honest, we already are. And AI is going to make education, healthcare, and even services like legal aid more accessible. I'm sure everyone believed the printing press would cause numerous problems after it was developed. But realistically, it allowed people to become educated, ideas to be spread, and medicines to be created. Now, technology is great, but it just can't solve everything. Siri can't fix climate change, ChatGPT cannot cure your attachment issues, and Google Maps cannot help Michael find moral direction. But humans can solve problems, and we are. So yes, let's talk about climate change, because Chub Seal has more at stake than any of us. If the ice caps melt, she'll be homeless. She'll have to move to Longford, and no one at Carja deserves that. But the point is, for the first time, the world is improving in this area. We no longer burn coal like it's aromatherapy, and we now have global treaties, carbon capture, and an entire generation that carries around hydro flasks and bamboo straws. Not to mention mental health. We've gone for our only options being to pray about it or die. We actually have treatments, awareness and access now. And rights. Our children will inherit a world where LGBTQ+ rights, disability rights and gender equality are actually protected. Because historically, human rights weren't exactly thriving. The bar was so low that it was basically a trip hazard. Chub Seal literally could have qualified for more legal protections than a woman or a member of an ethnic minority in the 1980s. But now, every generation continues to expand rights to children, to women, to minorities, and even to people who call the perch seagulls their spirit animals. True story, guys. If this isn't progress, I don't know what is. And here's the best part. Every step forward becomes the new baseline for the next generation. The rights we are fighting for today will become the rights that our children expect. They will defend them and expand them further. Something I'm sure even the person in the third row could do, who keeps looking at their phone if they tried. Shame. Akarja, every parent and every society is feared that the future generations are doomed. Maybe climate change exists. Maybe even the hist exists. And maybe UCD students will continue to haunt the bus station infrastructure of Dublin. But progress is real, and we've seen it all tonight. The fact I can stand up here with my pet Chub Seal without getting heckled and bullied, oh my God, shows that the world is becoming a better place. Slowly, yet surely. So I ask you, if humanity can survive plagues, wars, the Industrial Revolution, and UCD Christmas while still progressing, surely our children can inherit something better than what we were handed. Vote Proposition Acharja for the future, for our children, and for Chub Seal, who really, really doesn't want to move to Longford. Thank you.
I'd like to thank that speaker for a very fine speech. Move on to our second speaker, Carly Pugh.
Good evening, ladies and gents, friends, family, esteemed judges, and others. My name is Carly Pugh, and I am just happy to be here. First off, I'd like to thank all of Phil Council for putting on this competition and letting absolutely anyone up off the street pull arguments out of our various orifices once a week, as well as all of you who are just here, sitting there, looking pretty, which makes me all the more excited to lose my maidenhood in front of you guys tonight. Which my shrink told me was the most important thing about me. And don't worry, I'll make it tight and deep, and I'm not allowed to last longer than 7 minutes. Now, when faced with this motion, we first must determine what a better world looks like. Now, I don't have any children that I know of, but I think that all this motion requires of the proposition here is proving that my offspring will face a world with fewer and less extreme problems than the one that we're in right now. And I fear today they will continue to fall quite short of that burden. Problems. I have problems. That's pretty obvious. We all have problems. Sive has gambling debt. Alistair has venereal diseases. Michael is pregnant. The world as we know it is on its final stretch. And will we find a solution to these problems, or will they continue to compound on themselves by the time you're ready to pop out another sucker? All will be revealed in a twinkling. Now, as the only person here at this table pursuing a real degree, let me take it upon myself to show you the numbers that our kids are coming up against in the next few years. By 2050, 2.4 billion children will live in low-income countries, which is sixfold of what it is now. 8 times more will be exposed to extreme heat waves. I know Sive doesn't think so, but maybe. The cost of living will continue to grow significantly higher everywhere, leaving more kids to still be living with their parents, and I am looking at the UNC members on my side of the bench, that's you guys. And if we can agree that the world now is at bad, then you should be able to understand that the world on this course now in 5, 10, 20 years, for those of you still alive, not them, they'll be dead, will be significantly worse. So we all have these very sad scientific and humanitarian organizations we have these scientific and humanitarian organizations projecting some very sad trends. And I think a very large part of that simply has to do with demographics and the system failures that hold them in place. Child populations are surging fastest in low-income countries with the weakest education systems and the fewest resources to adapt, while populations are shrinking in high-income ones, where the progress that the proposition parrots actually will land. So when we do innovate, which I believe we will, the benefits go upwards. Better medicine, faster transportation, prettier charts on the news, which I do believe we'll get, are all increasingly priced, patented, or geographically restricted to the top slice of humanity. If a breakthrough in medical technology can save millions of lives, but only the top 1% can get access to it, has the world really gotten better? If a tree falls in a forest and no one's there to hear it, did it fall at all? And therefore, these improvements do not add up to a better world, especially in that 5, 10, 20 years, because they're not the reality for most children of that world. So me and my fellow master debaters on the opposition stand firmly against the fool's paradise of the prop, not because we're cynical, well, I am, but because that is literally where every current indicator is pointing, and who am I to say that we'll realistically be able to reverse all of those patterns when any major systemic or demographic change to do so is not on the horizon and is yet to be proved. So how do we fix this? What to do? What to do? I say let the rapture take us. That false alarm in September was looking pretty good. And as the self-selected religious figurehead of this chamber tonight, because I do not know how babies are made, I feel that it is my duty to give you instructions for survival. So the next time a stork asks to penetrate your black hole with its beak, or whatever the saying is, I say retreat, because the meek shall not inherit the earth. But in case an angel does flap its wings across my face one day, I want to think about how we and our future children will frame the time we are in now compared to that of the future. My close and personal friend George Orwell said, who controls the past controls the future, who controls the present controls the past. So history is not neutral because institutions, governments, media, even our own consciences cherry pick which events to emphasize, reinterpret, or downplay. We actively curate narratives to convince people that the world is improving or that it has improved, like highlighting tech breakthroughs or space exploration or whatever, all while glossing over structural failures and demographic realities aforementioned. So when our children inherit this framed story, they are not inheriting an objectively better world at all, but a propagandized lens through which we interpret the present and the past. Believing in an inherited better world becomes a self-fulfilling illusion where we just assume that things are improving all the time. Then we do something really bad, which is reduce agency for real change or urgency for real change that could get us anywhere near better in the future. Now I am almost done, thank God. So I leave you with this saying that my mother would read to me every night before bed. We shall squeeze you empty, and then we shall fill you with ourselves. That's Orwell again, you dirty, or I say you filthy dogs. My children, our children, if they exist, will be squeezed empty, empty of hope, empty of energy, empty of the zest for life that we hold on to so dearly. Because the more we create in this world, the more we dilute it. Ideas are finite, resources are finite, and I cannot be the only one feeling like I'm running out of original things to say or think, even right now. Perhaps the world has gone on long enough. We have 6 Minions movies, guys, and that cannot be good for anyone. Our children will inherit a world where nothing is original, where everything that feels new is just a shell of what it once was. And I will simply not allow my future daughter to lay awake at night thinking, is this really what this is supposed to feel like? Am I right, ladies? And so then, as Orwell said, we're gonna fill them up. They'll be filled to the brim with everything we left behind: rampant inequality, poverty, climate anxiety, debt, war, depression, and 3 a.m. WhatsApp messages from your course group chat calling your 70-year-old professor a baddie. All of it straight into the metaphorical room of our future. And that's exactly what this motion assumes, that somehow magically our children will have it better just because we don't want to personally feel guilty about leaving problems to time. Our children will inherit what we are actually able to fix, and everything we cannot. Not what we spin in a story, and certainly not what we leave to chance. Let us stop assuming that progress is inevitable simply because we hope it is. Vote opposition. Thank you.
I'd like to thank that speaker for a very fine speech and move on to our third proposition speaker, Joanna Shidippo.
I did not number these. That's not great for me. Okay. Okay, wait. Sorry. Okay, I'm gonna start now. I'm gonna start with a tiny little bit of a trigger warning. I know, like, we had really cool speeches, and now I'm gonna be like really serious for a second. Anyway, but I'm gonna allude to suicide. It's gonna be in the second point in my speech, so if you feel uncomfortable, like, I don't want to have my speech at anyone's emotional expense except my own. So yeah, okay, I'm gonna start. So when I was a child, I was one of those weird children that had a lot of imaginary friends, unfortunately. And I used to play in the yard by myself and think that, no, my imaginary friends are much cooler than actual other children. And then all the other kids used to make fun of me for it, and they were like, wow, she is so weird. But anyway, it got to a point where it was like really, really bad, and then my teacher called my mother and was like, yo, does your kid have some psychological problems? And my mother went on defensive mode and was like, no, like that's not a thing. And that was kind of the end of my teacher's intervention of that. So I became the class weirdo for like many, many years on end. But I'm here now, it's okay. So anyway, I'm telling this very embarrassing story because this situation, this fundamental misunderstanding of me trying to process my emotions and wondering like, okay, why do you think you're going to be judged by other 7-year-olds? So this just wouldn't happen in the world that our children will inherit. Okay, bullying is gonna become so 2010. Like today, or like in the future anyway, when a parent is told, hey, your child is acting really, really strange, we have a solution. We read parenting books, and there's so much research on like loads of different psychological problems that children could have. There's so much psychology being done. Any psychology students in the house? Yeah, okay. Anyway, so like we would simply find a way to help me process my emotions. Okay, so this debate is a question of perspective. Is the glass of the future half full or is it half empty? And on proposition, I'm gonna say it's being actively refilled. Okay, the opposition underestimates our innate craving for improvement. They highlight the inevitable faults of humanity, and I'm gonna highlight the inevitable strengths. Because concern for others, especially for our children, is on the rise. And like the easiest way that I can prove that is the fact that we're having this debate in the first place. Like the most profound improvement that our children will inherit is the normalization of mental health, okay? But like, let's think about the fact that we're having this debate. It means that we are all thinking about what our children are going to be doing in the future. We're thinking about, hey, like, the children. I don't have to say, think of the children. I don't have to say that for you to have them in contemplation, as every law student will know, Lord Atkins said, yeah, okay. Anyway, but like we don't see our children as a burden. We don't cast them to the wayside as past generations did. Okay, we are now more informed, and we have mainstream conversations about choosing to have a child. There was this very interesting conversation people were having on TikTok about, oh, if you were to actively disown your child for being gay, then you probably shouldn't be a parent. And I'm like, yeah, here. But like, the thing is, past generations hadn't come to that realization yet. So we're definitely moving in good steps in that direction. Okay, the old culture was gonna say, hey, how can this child fit a parent's life? And now we are asking, how can the parents restructure their lives to support their kid? It's just a culture shift. It's a change that's going to be applied to all of our children. So when our parents were having children, hey, they were thinking, oh, let me have a little me, just someone that can, make me look good, and I'm really empathetic. But like they couldn't really conceptualize that their children would evolve into their own people, their own lives, have their own worldviews, and they kind of like, okay, some of them might have acted a bit on autopilot, like, okay, I'll give my kid a little spank here because that's just the way it's always been done. That's how you discipline your children. But now, okay, I don't know how people in high society treat their kids. Like, I'm not too sure how they raise their kids over there, unless Gossip Girl is anything to go by. I don't know, I'm from Tala, I can't say much. But anyway, but like, okay, do you know those people that say, hey, my parents spanked me and like, I turned out fine. And I'm always like, okay, but how's your relationship with your parents? See, the thing is, our kids won't have that problem because we're just gonna be sound, like we're so woke, guys. Okay, this generation has bred like thousands of overthinkers and critical minds. I could say this about all of you here because you're in college. And like, okay, we literally shot all over the status quo. So like when someone says like, I don't know, Brendan, yeah, you've been a really, really bold boy today and gonna like give you a little spank, like that's not something that's gonna happen, okay? Because then Brendan, okay, who wasn't spanked, isn't gonna internalize these bad things and like hate his parents and then not go for any opportunities that were available to him because he was scared of making any little mistake. Brendan, you didn't make a mistake. I bet you had a great childhood. Okay, but the thing is, like, he's not gonna be stumped upon fear because our children are gonna be living in a world that is fearless. Okay, I'm gonna move on to my second point. Cool, about like inclusion, equality, and more wokeness, because who doesn't love being woke? Because it's like life-saving, low-key. So this might sound like a tiny bit of waffle, but like, okay, I'm gonna show you how powerful inclusion is by making a world a better place, because I'm gonna show you how hopeless a world is without it. Okay, so let's say you walk into school one day and you're wondering, like, where is your friend Tim? I hope no one in this audience is named Tim. If not, I will use a different name. I could use, like, I don't know, Ebenezer or something. Like, who's called that? Anyway, so let's say, okay, Tim, yeah, you're wondering, like, where are you at the arts building? He's our, once again, imaginary gay man, low-key. I'm great at making imaginary characters, as I've already proved earlier on. But anyway, so for far too long, Tim has been raised in a culture that taught him that his identity of being a gay man was some type of fatal flaw. And then when he came out, he was disowned by his family. But you didn't know about this until like much after. And you're like, wait, where's Tim? And you find out that Tim is no longer with us. You're probably thinking, down. But anyway, this kind of alienation, that pressure that leads to tragic outcomes, this doesn't happen in the world that our children will inherit, okay? Because like, you probably know people with a story that is similar to Tim's. You probably know, like, because it affects people around them, the entire world. But the thing is, Tim doesn't have to feel this way, okay? And the future Tims of our generation also won't have to feel this way, because we are becoming more accepting than ever, because we're woke, bruh. We're woke. But anyway, anything like all of these differences that used to be seen as flaws, like being gay or your neurodivergencies or your race or your gender, they used to be seen as flaws. Now they're just like a normal part of who you are. Like when I have kids, they're not going to feel really weird about like the fact that they're going to be black, most likely, I think, and the fact that their hair will grow outwards instead of down, because like, I don't know, we've normalized having dreadheads speak in the chamber. I just don't know how that is. But anyway, I will just quickly, I am going to go over time about this. Okay, and like the thing about the economics thing, okay, like my last and final point that I'll just quickly say is that we will inevitably progress. That is just how humans are. Opposition's case is built off of fear, economic collapse, climate change, insert any problematic character in all of society. I don't know, there's a lot, like Donald Trump. But anyway, but like how worse can it get? As humans, we've survived through world wars, global pandemics, and even the existence of Enoch Burke. We've been doing it. So historically, we bounce back from every single crisis. Wall Street crash, we bounce back. The 2007 recession, we bounced back. Even the old people keep telling me all the dangers about it, but we bounced back, okay? So we adapt, we don't just survive, we institutionalize the lessons. And that's really my point on that. Economics, cool, okay, so yeah, when we have children, we're probably still gonna be looking at the instruction manual, probably not knowing what we're gonna do, but we're gonna be more informed than ever. And that's why you're gonna be side prop. Thank you.
Okay, I would like to thank that speaker for a very fine speech. Move on to our third opposition speaker, Jesse Yip.
If I start violently coughing halfway through this, I apologize. Okay. It's 8 in the morning, and you scramble to turn off the phone alarm. You're sweaty, greasy, and hungover. And that essay that was due last night, you did not get that in. But despite this, usually you wake up happy and look forward to starting your day. Because what would be the point of waking up if you didn't have something to look forward to? And so while you butter your toast and pour the milk into the cereal, you open your phone. Dude, you were so fucked up last night, bro, is what the American exchange student has messaged you. You cringe yourself into a fetal position after opening the windows. It's sunny outside. And despite the 7 gruesome images of you from the PAV circulating in your head, you feel a wave of sudden appreciation. God, aren't I just so lucky, you think? Isn't the world just great? 50,000 children have just died, is what you read on the UNICEF ad that pops up on your screen. You almost choke on your cereal. But what saves you is the article below it that reads 20,000 children, according to SaveTheChildren.net. So you know, maybe it's not that bad. And you scroll again. More than 10 children killed every day in Gaza. 10. 10 is more palatable than 50,000. It's a bit milder on your stout-filled stomach. But even despite the numbers decreasing, reading these things isn't making you feel all that great. So instead, you open Instagram Reels, hoping to find something a little bit more optimistic. Your algorithm suggests AI Foods' reactions to eating themselves, and Charlie Kirk's face hidden in an album cover. And honestly, this fact alone should convince you of the opposition's argument. But on the 6th scroll, it's war in Ukraine and Russia. It's watching people that should be in first year of college getting conscripted into battles that have nothing to do with them. It's aerial footage of blood-stained Sudan, and it's your daily warning that Ireland will be half submerged in water by 2050. You put your phone down and don't pick it back up. Facebook, YouTube, Snapchat, it'll all be the same thing. And now it's 8:30, you have to leave soon. But those videos have left a sour taste in your mouth. You find yourself wondering about the future. of what things you have to look forward to. And while in this case you may be an optimist, there's not many lies that can cover up the crimes of the world this morning. The proposition asks us to believe our children will inherit a better world. But how can we believe anything removed from dread when the shouts of children's pleas are muffled in between the windows of ice trucks and bullets stuck in their throats? For to believe the existence of something, there needs to be evidence, and every day I see none. It has become so easy for us, and almost survivalist, to come face to face with such tragedies and yet continue on with our day as if nothing happened. We try to fill that gaping hole where the stores of our empathy were robbed dry with positive outlooks and a hope that carries so far as to lead us onwards while we slowly become blind to the world around us. I argue today that there is no great world to inherit as of now, and that to deny this is to be ignorant. Children, the prompt specifies, will inherit a better world, yet the war in Gaza rages onwards like a monster who relies on their blood for life. We have seen the red sleeve of USA's complicity in vetoing the ceasefire in the UN Security Council, and the struggle for any means of interference on a global scale. We watched as politicians who were entrusted with representing the lives of others now contest online as to whether or not their names are in the Epstein files. And that, I am sorry to say, is the hands that the world is in the palm of. What fool would believe hands like those would empty itself for the good of our children to come? Before we give our children this world to inherit, we must strive to change it. And that requires individual effort on a mass scale, as what there is to inherit today is merely what rags would be to a t-shirt. It must be repaired first. And the first step to repair is to know what the broken thing needs. The hardest thing about this, however, is actually trying to figure out what it is that can be solved. I woke up a few days ago and watched Peter Thiel hesitate in answering an interviewer on if he wants the human race to endure. When asked why, he said, simply, transhumanism. We can replace the natural human body with robotic bits. I sent this video to my friend, and she responded, wait till he hears about fleshlights. However, Lucky decided to join this Lord of the Rings subreddit in 2017 and founded his company Anduril. Yes, named after Aragorn's sword. Together, hand in hand, both Lucky and Thiel decided to dedicate their lives to manufacturing and exporting weapons of war to Israel and the UAE, while in their beds they dreamed about what it would be like to explore each other's bodies. If only Palantir could slip a camera down a certain pants. And maybe this is why Donald Trump has cut taxes for the top 10%, so Thiel can provide him with regular visual updates on whether Bill Clinton is hard or not. And is it not laughable to think that these names I have mentioned are the ones whose decisions have the greatest impact on the future of our world? Going back to my t-shirt analogy, it's like handing a baby a needle and thread and expecting it to sew the tears. And so until we replace babies with adults and stop bombing them and sexually assaulting them in the meantime, there will be no great world for our children to inherit. Nothing could be farther from truth than my wanting you to hear my speech today and leave feeling a deep sense of dread and fear. But at the same time, it is necessary we recognize that our world is flawed, and from that seek to improve it. There was an essay featured in the College Theological Zine recently that told about a man called Thomas Merton, who, while walking in Louisville, had an epiphany that he deeply loved every stranger around him. That, because of this, they could never be alien to him. We are witnessing an age where children and their families are being labeled as illegal aliens, where people as a whole are viewed as subhuman. I'd like to end this speech by promoting the steps of Merton, to encourage us to love one another as equals, and, although it is a small step, perhaps it will be the largest in effect, from one human to another, for changing this world for the better. Thank you.
I'd like to thank that speaker for a very fine speech and move on to our final proposition speaker, Pearl McHugh.
Thank you, Hunter. The future that lies ahead of us and the world that lies before our children will be dictated by the force of humanity in our generation. We do not know what is not now. We hold the power to create the future. The contribution of your life fuels the life of the next. This gives our life purpose. Death beckons us forward, and when our time comes, we must bequeath this gift of life to our children. So while I cannot promise that our children will inherit a perfect world, I believe that our children will inherit a better world, because we will love and we will hope, and because of that, we will fight for the future. To do so is to believe that somewhere over the rainbow, it will get better. And if we don't have that, we don't have anything. The thought of having children is to many of us impalpable. I admit, the concept of having to care for life that we are responsible for is an elusive one. But the fact that you have love for your own future allows me to conclude that you will love the future of your children. At times I wonder if I even care about my own future. I do things that would lead me to believe that I don't. I mean, a lot of the time, I'm a mess. I'll wake up in a bed that isn't my own and look at the guy and genuinely question if this is a form of self-harm. I drink too much to the point where I can't study in the usher if I'm hungover because I'm afraid I'll throw myself off the fifth floor. I lie in bed, my own one, and question whether I should go to my lectures or not. I mean, David Kenny is never going to know whether I'm fantasizing about him in the Ed Burke or in my bed. Despite all of this, I persist in face of the future. I could have just ended it all after my performance over Freshers Week, but I kept going. The knowledge that there is a tomorrow holds us to account. Because if there was no future, I'd just say, fuck this, give it to me, David Kenny. But I don't. Because the thought of the future seduces me more. So if I can love my future, so can you. And we can do the same for our children. I know this because there was a time in my life, and maybe some of you will have experienced the same, when I put a hand to my womb and I thought, I'm a mommy. So I understand that there will come a time when it is no longer my future that is a priority. And after being pounded by your partner for 3 whole minutes, you will too. This 2-week period, pun intended, taught me that I have the capacity to confer this love for my own future to the future of another. I suddenly cared and loved for something other than myself. I started frantically researching schools. Mondanville if it was a girl, Gonzaga if it was a boy. I only drank between lectures because if my child was going to be born to an alcoholic mother, I wanted to at least be functioning. I took the bins out for the first time because I wanted to contribute to the climate fight for my child's future. I even went to confession and begged the priest to pray for the future of my child. He assured me that from God's heart this child has come. In his light this child shall rise and prosper. Then he pulled down the hatch and said, but if you're in need of a miracle, there's an abortion clinic down the street. To which I replied, but Father, you said you used protection. Little did that priest know a miracle had taken place in me. I really felt that Holy Spirit. I was emboldened to create a world that would love and protect my child when I was no longer there. And because I was doing all of this, I missed 2 weeks of lectures. That meant giving up 4 raw, passionate hours of David Kenny. That's how much I cared for the future of this child. So as you can imagine, I was devastated when the test came back negative. I had fully embodied parenthood, and I wanted to continue to experience the magic of that love. I now know why my parents still love me, despite everything, because I am their life, I am their everything. To have a child is to have a duty to make this world a better place, so that when you leave this earth, the world that you will have left will be a better one, fought for with love. This is why I know our children will inherit a better world, because I trust that you will do the same for your child that I did for mine. So now, given that you will love your child, I urge you to have hope for its future. Because when you hope, the impossible becomes possible. Have hope that someday we will reach that shining city on the hill. Have hope that the better angels of our nature will win. Have hope that the love humanity thrives on will conquer all. It takes courage to hope in dark times, so have courage. Just like the women of Trinity. In 1904, we were allowed to attend Trinity, owing to hope and the courage to fight. We dared to hope again in 1954. That's why I, as a woman, stand before you in the field today. At the start of my journey in Trinity, I sat at the first debate of term and hoped that one day I would speak in chamber. Here I am. Yet still, I acknowledge there are challenges before us that have the potential to jeopardize the future, but that doesn't mean that we will let them. I have shown you that you can and will love, that you can and will hope, and because of that, you will fight for our children's world. This fight will be guided by the wisdom of our parents who have done the same for us. The threat of AI and technology is imminent, yes, but as I've mentioned, the same was faced with the printing press, the development of electricity, and the dawning of the internet. Of course they thought, we may be fucked with this one, yet humanity still managed the threat. We evolve and update the codes of life to adapt to a new way of living, just like the generation before us. And trust me, it won't replace us. If you've ever sexted, you know that it's like having sex with a condom. It just never feels as good. Nuclear weapons and war also pose a threat. I mean, if Putin wakes up one morning after not have taken it too far in the Kremlin's local, I wouldn't even blame the guy if he just decided, fuck this, I'm out, and annihilates us all. But again, we've lived with nuclear weapons for nearly 80 years, and the trend has always been de-escalation. We act and we control, just like the morning after pill. Now, I must admit, the climate crisis is a serious threat to the future. We are reliant on the planet, and it needs us to save it from the mistakes of past generations, so that we can give a better world to our children. I believe that we will fight for the planet. Looking around the room, I have faith in us to love our planet. I have faith in us to hope for its future, and I have faith in us to fight for it. And we will. Because like those Hollywood movies, you will think all hope is lost. It could be 2059 and humanity will swoop in to save itself from its own demise, because this is what we do. Absolute cinema. Man will always overcome the threats that it faces, even when the threat is itself. In the words of Ireland's greatest politician, Barack Obama, yes, we can. And I believe that our children will inherit a better world because of this. So come to the pond of your being. Love your future, and in turn you will love the future of your children. Hope for something better. See the light beyond the darkness, and trust in humanity to achieve those dreams. Let that hope inspire you to fight for that love. If we do that, we cannot fail in our duty to provide our children with a better world. Until the end, when time has lapsed its timeless tick, you'll find us in a place where bluebirds fly and dreams come true. We will be among the generations that have come and gone before us, awaiting the day our children emerge from a world not perfect, but better, carrying with them the hope for even better somewhere over the rainbow.
I'd like to thank that speaker for a very fine speech and invite our final speaker of the night to close out this debate, Oliver Zizek.
If you've been convinced the world is going to suck, or later tonight, I have great news. Carly is offering vasectomies at GM Bar. You're in great company. The man who I've been told is Sive's favorite Brit, environmentalist and godless heathen, David Attenborough, has said that our planet needs human population control. I disagree. And actually, I plan on having dozens of children and homeschooling them to make sure they all turn out gay. But I am under no illusions that the world will have improved by the time they turn 18 and I let them outside. I am standing here because I have no choice but to reject the motion, this House believes our children will inherit a better world. I know the hand my children will be dealt is worse than the one I was given. I'm also here to argue that that's a good thing, somewhat. It'll teach them grit. More seriously, accepting that the world is heading in the wrong direction is a necessary first step if we want to fix those problems. Too often, we hear from people like the proposition that somebody else is going to fix our problems. Sive thought that an adorable toy and 8 words oskelga would save her speech. The entire proposition has made their case with exclusively references to our past. Over my lifetime, humanity's best efforts have failed to curb hunger and disease, and indifference to those problems is growing. As of last week, there has not been a new episode of Barbie Life in the Dream House in over a decade. This is an international crisis. And contrary to the points the proposition has made, it is not a crisis our generation is equipped to solve. I believe we inherited a world that's too comfortable, and that misguided efforts to improve society on our behalf are what put us in our current predicament. The proposition has suggested that the arc of the universe is long, but it bends towards progress. The generations before us thought they were building a better world, but they were wrong. Alistair and I are the old wise men at the table. And the year we were born, 2005, society's brightest minds were busy inventing Reddit. Questionably ethical scientists in South Korea created Snuppy, the first cloned puppy. And definitely unethical scientists in Mullingar were raising Liam Corcoran to be Ireland's gayest man. None of these things made the world better. The history of human innovation has been defined by unintended consequences. Children as young as 5 years old average 3 hours of screen time a day, and the children sitting at this table average 3 whole inches. Modern psychological studies have found that our generation inherited the shortest attention span in all of human history, which is why I have so many jokes. If those trends are allowed to continue, our children will be even more intellectually and morally stunted than Snuppy, the first cloned puppy, or, God forbid, Brendan Ryan. You've already heard a lot tonight, and I acknowledge my bench is to blame about how bad the world is. I do want to distance myself from that just a little bit. The world we inherited can be a great one and still be getting worse. The prosperity we've been manufacturing is deeply unsustainable. I could not have asked for a better childhood than the one I had. I grew up in a small town called Maumee, Ohio. It's real, you can look it up. It even snowed once, February 2015. I remember that year my sister was going through a phase where she only wanted to eat kiwis. Do you know how much of an offense against God it is to be able to eat a kiwi in February in Maumee, Ohio? I was introduced tonight, 7 hours ago, as a geography major. For my fellow Americans, physical geography is a real science, and human geography is mostly Marxism. The Marxist geographer David Harvey, one of the most cited authors in all of the humanities, is known for saying that capitalism doesn't solve its problems, it just moves them around. I was able to have an idyllic childhood only because other children in the Congo were mining cobalt at 4 years old. Housing is cheap in my hometown because we spent 100 years deforesting Canada. The reason the world is getting worse now is that we're running out of hiding places for our problems. Michael can't hide his search history. Liam's volleyball coach can't hide his doping. And Matilda just can't hide how badly she wants to be president. When we talk about the world our children are going to inherit, we're forced to confront global crises. The proposition has pointed out several valid reasons to have hope. There are incredible new vaccines. Life expectancy and education rates are going up. And last year, Barbie came back on our screens in the critically acclaimed film Barbie Mysteries: The Great Horse Chase, starring Barbie as Europe's greatest equestrian detective. But these promising developments are not enough to address the root cause, which is human nature. We've pursued constant growth, extreme profit, and endless sprawl. We thought that was making the world better, but but now we have to pay the price. Despite all of the problems we've been telling you about, I still want to have children. I need them as labor for my TikTok shop. I think it'll be cute to make them wear little hats and teach them the lyrics to kneecap songs. More than anything, I want to indoctrinate them with the same message that I have given you tonight. I oppose the motion because I refuse to deny the crises our world is going through. Our children's lives will undeniably be hard in ways that ours were not. They deserve our honesty, because the opposition does not stand here solely out of pessimism. We do have the power to improve our children's future, but first, we must acknowledge the need to change directions. Thank you.
I would like to thank that speaker for a very fine speech. All our speakers tonight, all our maidens, and all of the audience, thank you guys very, very much. I'd like to invite you all upstairs after we vote. We have our GM bar going on where our winner of maidens and our runner-up will be announced.
But before we go, a massive shout out to Michael.
Now we'll vote. All those in favor will say yay, and all those against will say nay. All those in favor? Yeah. One more try. All those in favor? All those against? No!